progress. Good to have you with us on this Thursday. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We're going to get started today with a close watch on the Atlantic Ocean, where Hurricane Ernesto is gaining strength. Hundreds of thousands are waking up without power and water in Puerto Rico after the then tropical storm dropped up to 10 inches of rain on some parts of the island yesterday. Dozens of flights were canceled, and devastating floods prompted President Biden to declare a state of emergency.
The Category 1 storm is now taking aim at Bermuda, packing winds more than 85 miles an hour. Forecasters predict it will become a Category 3 hurricane before it makes landfall on the island nation on Saturday. We have a team tracking Ernesto's path, starting with NBC News correspondent Guad Venegas on the ground in Bermuda.
Joe, Savannah, good morning. The National Hurricane Center has issued a hurricane warning for Bermuda, with local officials holding a press conference yesterday, warning residents here about the necessary preparations before a hurricane. Now, we spoke to some of the immigration officers as we arrived. Some of the residents last night who say they are used to hurricanes. They know what preparations need to be made, but of course, officials want to make sure that they are making those preparations, of course. Meanwhile, in Puerto Rico, the damage is still being assessed. There are still hundreds of thousands without power. At its peak, the number was more than 700,000 customers without power in Puerto Rico. That number has been reduced overnight. The last number reported was about 500,000 customers. This would mean that maybe a million people, because you're talking about customers, you have 2 to 3 people per household. That could be more than a million people without power in Puerto Rico. So the power company is expected to use helicopters today to inspect some of the lines in the areas most affected. The National Guard announced that they will be helping the power company with more helicopters, as they announced yesterday. The big issue in Puerto Rico is that the power lines need to be inspected before they can have power in many of these areas. Meanwhile, hundreds are still in shelters across the island, with the flooding affecting different municipalities. And Puerto Rico, again, still assessing the damage. There's also extra help coming after President Biden approved an emergency declaration, which would be of a lot of help, especially for the local communities on the east part of the island where the storm hit the hardest. Back to you, Joe, Savannah.
All right, Guad, thank you so much.
For more on the path of Hurricane Ernesto, let's take you now to your Morning News Now weather.
Chief Meteorologist Ryan Hanrahan from our NBC affiliate in Connecticut joins us now with that. Ryan, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joe. Good morning, Savannah. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, we've got Hurricane Ernesto. It's north of Puerto Rico now, so the weather on the island is looking much, much better today. And Ernesto is strengthening right now. There was a little bit of dry air that got sort of wrapped into the storm circulation over the last 24 hours, but it looks like the thunderstorms are sort of wrapping around the center a little more than what we saw yesterday. So that's certainly a sign of strengthening. The storm is still 635 miles to the south-southwest of Bermuda, winds of 85 miles per hour. And if you look at this map, the orange here, these are tropical storm force winds, and the red would be winds at or above hurricane force. And watch what happens as the storm goes over the Atlantic. There's Bermuda, and it looks like Bermuda is going to get very close to a direct hit from this storm. We've got a hurricane warning in effect, destructive winds, flash flooding possible on the island. Bermuda, obviously, on the Atlantic Ocean, is fairly used to getting strong hurricanes, but this one looks like it's going to be a powerful one for the island. It arrives Friday night and early Saturday morning. The last hurricane to make landfall in Bermuda was Hurricane Paulette back in September of 2020. So it's been about 4 years. The storm comes to the north, and it looks like it stays pretty far to the east of the eastern seaboard here in the U.S. However, even though it's going to be offshore, about 600 miles or so offshore, it's going to send some very powerful waves towards the East Coast. So from the Atlantic Ocean beaches, from Maine down toward Cape Cod, the Jersey Shore, the Outer Banks, expect some large waves, some rough surf, and some rip currents this weekend. So if you've got plans to go to the beach, something to keep in mind there. Got some storms across the Midwest this morning, from Minneapolis down towards Chicago. Sort of an unsettled morning, some thunder and lightning heading into Chicago shortly. And we also have a risk for some severe weather today. No severe weather out there right now, but I do think we'll see some stronger storms developing by this afternoon. We've got temperatures that'll be in the 80s across the Midwest, with that chance for some showers and some thunderstorms. 21 million at risk for severe weather today. That threat will shift to the east tomorrow. So Detroit, Indianapolis, down toward Nashville, a marginal risk for some severe thunderstorms. And we also have some heavy rain that'll be moving through as well. The heat continues down south. In fact, it's a little worse today than it's been over the last couple of days. A heat warning in effect now from Tulsa to Little Rock down through Jackson, Mississippi, and New Orleans. Temperatures about 5 to 10 degrees above average. Little Rock 99 today, 101 in Dallas, 96 in New Orleans. Still hot tomorrow. Temperatures around 100 degrees in Dallas once again. Same in Little Rock. And a little cooler up to the north, though getting a bit warmer. St. Louis in the 80s over the weekend. Same in Cincinnati and D.C.
Hard to believe it's getting hotter in the south with as bad.
It is hard to believe. Absolutely.
Oh, it really is, but it's been lovely here.
It certainly has been. Yeah.
Ryan, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's breaking news out of the Middle East. The Gaza Health Ministry says that Israel's military offensive has now killed more than 40,000 Palestinians in the enclave since the war started 10 months ago. The news comes as a new round of ceasefire negotiations is set to begin today in Qatar, with Hamas saying that it will not be taking part. For more, let's bring in NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez. He's in Tel Aviv with the latest. Raf, good morning. So when it comes to these talks, where do things stand?
Joe, good morning. Israel's negotiators departed earlier today for Qatar. They will be meeting with the mediators, the United States, Egypt, and Qatar. And CIA Director Bill Burns is once again in the room, as he has been through these many, many rounds of negotiations over the last 10 months, hoping to make progress. But as you said, Joe, Hamas is not going to be at these talks, and the White House has really been trying to set expectations here. No one expects that the CIA director is going to emerge from a hotel room in Doha with a piece of paper to end this war in Gaza, to finally bring the hostages home. But the hope from the Biden administration is to make significant progress, to give the mediators something that they can go over to Hamas with and finally get this deal over the line. It has been made more complicated, according to both U.S. and foreign officials, by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continuing to add new demands in between these rounds of negotiations. But you also now have Hamas led by Yahya Sinwar, the hardline leader who masterminded October 7th. And their position with these talks has been, there's nothing more to negotiate. Our position is clear, and it's up to Israel to agree to it.
Raf, at this point, is there at least like a basic framework for an agreement to work off of?
So we've been through a couple of iterations here, Joe. You'll remember President Biden stood up at the White House back in May, and he said that there was a three-phase deal, the basic framework of which had been agreed. It would involve the release of a certain amount of hostages in return for a 7-week ceasefire in the first phase, and then end of the war, release of all hostages in the second, and then phase 3 would be about the reconstruction of Gaza and potentially a path towards a Palestinian state. The devil is absolutely in the detail, Joe. I'll give you just one example. The two sides appear deadlocked on this question of what is going to happen on the border between Gaza and Egypt. You might remember Israeli forces seized that border back in early May. Israel says its troops need to remain there to prevent Hamas from smuggling weapons under the border back into Gaza. Hamas is saying for them that is a non-starter. Those troops need to go. So it is that kind of more technical detail, if you will, that is really, really holding up these talks, and it is not clear if the two sides are going to be able to bridge those gaps. Jeff.
Raf, it has been now more than 2 weeks since the killing of those top Hezbollah and Hamas leaders. We've been bracing, especially this week, for the possibility of retaliation. Any more clues as to when that could happen?
Joe, I can tell you, people in this city, people across Israel, have gone to bed every night for the last 2 weeks looking at the sky, wondering, is tonight the night that those missiles, those drones expected from Iran are going to land? And every morning they wake up and it is another day of waiting. I can tell you, Israeli officials are not resting easy. They do believe that this attack is going to come at some point. The only possible off-ramp here is one that was raised by President Biden, which is if there does seem to be progress in these ceasefire talks, it is possible that Iran might agree to hold off, potentially call off this attack altogether, because they don't want to be seen as the ones derailing those negotiations. But there is a whole lot that needs to go right in the right order for that to happen. Jeff.
All right, Raf, we know you'll stay on top of it. Thank you so much.
Well, Columbia University President Manoush Shafiq has resigned amid criticism over her handling of the pro-Palestinian campus protests earlier this year.
Columbia was one of many schools across the country that saw big protests erupt on campus over the war in Gaza. Demonstrators set up encampments demanding their schools cut financial ties with Israel and companies that support the war. Shafiq faced criticism for calling in police to dismantle the camps and enter a school building that some protesters had occupied. She also faced criticism from House Republicans on Capitol Hill and others accused of failing to tackle anti-Semitism on campus. NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton has been following this all along, joins us now with the latest. Walk us through why Shafiq has decided to step down now as we get toward the end of the summer, months after this controversy. What did she say in her resignation letter?
Well, good morning, guys. I would describe her resignation letter as sad, but also very resolute. And I'm going to read one part of it that's very important. She writes, "It has been distressing for the community, for me as president, and on a personal level, to find myself, colleagues, and students the subject of threats and abuse." And I read that part because according to a source with direct knowledge of her decision that spoke to NBC News, this was really the dividing line for her, the pressure mounting from the community, knowing that the protests were going to start again in just a few weeks, the kind of pain, frankly, that she very personally and her family has been through. It just made it untenable. That really was the breaking point.
What's been the reaction from students and staff?
They vary. So some of the staff, they were sending texts to me last night saying good riddance. Others were actually a bit surprised and in some cases a little bit fearful. They know Manoush Shafiq. Now there's an interim who is coming from the medical center who people don't know very well. And that's an added variable here to a campus that's already been through a lot of turmoil. We know the students involved in organizing and protesting, though, have celebrated this. They posted on social media basically indicating that any president who takes her place, who doesn't listen to their demands, their movement, will likely be facing the same level of criticism and pressure, though.
Let's talk about the interim. Her name is Katrina Armstrong. As you mentioned, she's the CEO of the Columbia University Irving Medical Center. What more do we know about her? As you mentioned, we're probably going to see more protests in the fall as well, too. What can we expect going forward?
Katrina Armstrong runs the medical center. But what you should know about the medical center is actually quite a ways away from the Morningside Classic Columbia campus. So this is not someone who the undergrad professors or the undergrad students themselves, they don't see her day to day walking the halls. She's not present. Right. So she's going to be new to a lot of people. I spoke to someone who knows her very well, though, and they told me that she is whip smart. She's very blunt. So that is something that could change the dynamic in terms of the way that she communicates with students and faculty. I can also say that faculty really appreciated some of what she shared with the community last night, which is that she really called out the faculty as being the people who create the culture and the dialogue on campus. And that is something that they really appreciate, and they saw that as a sign that she's coming to build relationships, make amends in some cases, and they hope that that helps with the temperature on campus.
All right. Antonia, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us this morning.
And your continued reporting. Let's turn now to the race for the White House. Former President Trump is back on the campaign trail, outlining some of his priorities for a potential second term as president.
Mr. Trump held a rally yesterday in North Carolina where he discussed the economy. Tomorrow, Vice President Harris will roll out some of her economic plans when she visits North Carolina. Now, during Mr. Trump's speech, which lasted more than an hour yesterday, he lobbed a number of personal attacks against his opponent and against President Biden. Today, the current president and VP, Mr. Biden and Ms. Harris, are set to hold their first joint event together since the president dropped out of the race last month. They're going to be in Maryland to discuss lowering costs for Americans. NBC's Garrett Hake has the latest on the 2024 campaign.
Former President Trump in battleground North Carolina, taking aim at Vice President Harris's record on the economy.
Kamala has declared that tackling inflation will be a day one priority. Think of it for her, but day one for Kamala was 3.5 years ago. Why hasn't she done it?
Blasting Harris for nearly 20% rise in prices over the last 4 years.
Does anyone here feel richer under Kamala Harris than Crooked Joe, than you were during the Trump administration? Is anything less expensive under Kamala Harris and Crooked Joe?
Trump accusing Harris of stealing his proposal to end taxes on tips, which he announced months ago and she adopted over the weekend.
And eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
Remember a couple of days ago? And we will have no tax on tips. I said that was my plan.
And making this new pledge.
To help seniors on fixed incomes who are suffering the ravages of inflation, there will be no tax on Social Security. We're going to stop it.
But in a speech billed as an address on the economy, Trump constantly veering off message.
That's the laugh of a crazy person.
Back to his frequent playbook of insulting Harris.
You know why she hasn't done an interview? Because she's not smart.
All despite growing criticism from fellow Republicans as Democrats gain momentum. Former Trump rival turned supporter Nikki Haley.
The campaign is not going to win talking about crowd sizes. It's not going to win talking about what race Kamala Harris is. It's not going to win talking about whether she's dumb.
Meanwhile, Harris will appear with President Biden at an economic event and will speak on the economy on Friday, also in this critical battleground state. Garrett Haake, NBC News, Asheville, North Carolina.
Let's stay on this and bring in NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen for more. John, good morning. Great to see you. Let's start on the Trump campaign and the former president's speech yesterday. We heard a little bit about their spending time criticizing the Biden administration and then attacking Vice President Harris, of course, now his opponent. What are some of the key takeaways from what we heard?
I think the big takeaway is that Trump's plan for attacking Kamala Harris is still scattershot, or maybe a better way to put it is he's not sticking to one plan. On the one hand, he is saying that she's too liberal, which is what his campaign wants him to say. And he is saying that she is tied to the Biden administration and its record on the economy, which is what his campaign wants him to say. And on the other hand, there are still a fusillade of personal attacks on Harris. Him talking about whether or not she's dumb and things like that. So I think he still hasn't really settled on a sharp message.
As we mentioned, Vice President Harris will be in North Carolina tomorrow, where we're expected to hear more about her economic agenda. We are learning new details this morning about some of what we can expect to hear on that. What do we know so far?
I think the headline on that is that she wants to use the federal government to crack down on what she calls corporate price gouging. Trump pointing out that inflation, cumulative inflation over the last 4 years, has really hit Americans hard. And the answer to that, or at least part of the answer to that, according to the Harris campaign, and we'll see her roll this out, is that corporations are taking advantage of opportunities to raise prices. So she'll use an agency called the Federal Trade Commission to try to crack down on that. She said she'll, her campaign says it's the first federal law to ban price gouging. I think, we'll have to see the details in terms of whether or not there would be some sort of ban on price gouging. And also, there's a long history of attempts to hold down prices through the federal government. But that seems to be the direction she's going in. The Biden administration has long blamed corporations for these prices, and I think this is just a continuation of that.
And John, let's talk running mates. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz accepting an invitation from CBS News for a vice presidential debate against Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, scheduled for October 1st. What should we know about this?
I think we should know that, number one, it's likely to happen, and number two, it could be really brutal. Both of these guys are leaning into their roles as vice presidential candidates as attack dogs. And so, I think the sparks could really fly. Both of them are, extremely articulate and capable of making an argument. And I think the vice presidential debate could be something to tune into.
John, always great to see you. Thank you so much for your reporting here. On a programming note, we will have extensive live coverage of the Democratic National Convention from Chicago all next week. It kicks off on Monday right here on NBC News Now, as well as on NBC.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.